You know, I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, and I'm definitely not an anti-government person. If you don't believe me, go to some of the earlier American Warning chats or the Green Dragon chats where I was actually invited and look what happens when I talk. Their little heads explode. There's like tinfoil going everywhere. But I have been working in my yard all day, and I'm hot, I'm sweaty, I'm irritable, I'm splinters from my ass to my elbows, so I thought this would be a good time to vent and do a little bit of a rant video. Now, even though I'm not a conspiracy theorist or an anti-government person, I am someone that likes to pay attention to what's going on around me. I like to add up the numbers, and I like to pay attention to the history that has preceded the things that are happening now. But there's one thing I've been seeing in the news a lot lately that's really bothering me. I'm seeing it from local officials, I'm seeing it from police departments, and I'm seeing it especially from people that are preparing to run for president. And it's this whole idea that we need to reevaluate police department budgets, that they need more money, they need better equipment, and they need more officers. And to this I say, why? What would ever justify that? This chart here shows the violent crime rates per 100,000 residents since the 1990s, and population has only gone up about 10-12% since then. But the crime rates have dropped by over 50%. They're less than half of what they were in the 1990s. So if our violent crime rates, which include rape and assault and murder and more serious property crimes, are falling at such a drastic rate, why do we need more police officers? And why do they need better equipment? It seems to me if we have less violent crime, we don't need more police officers with heavier equipment, we need less police officers. Law enforcement is supposed to be a civilian authority that protects the common good. They enforce the law and they protect the peace. If there's less people breaking the law, less people doing things against the peace, why do we need more police officers instead of less? Could it be that instead of being seen as a civil authority to enforce the laws, they are now being seen as a private army, an army that protects the interests of the elite and the ruling class? Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, why would the politicians and the ruling class need police forces when they have the armies already? Well, armies have one problem. They're citizens, and they're taught from the time that they enlist that they are protecting the citizens. They are fighting for their fellow man. They are fighting for their country. In law enforcement, it's a completely opposite story. More and more these days, it's being presented as a case of them against us. It's the police against everyone else. It's the citizens are the enemy of the police. So when you have a private army that already feels that the citizens are the problem, it's really easy to manipulate them into doing the bidding of those in power. And unfortunately, we're seeing it more and more every day that police officers aren't being used to enforce the law. They're being used to repress the rights of the citizens. They're showing up to demonstrations with armed vehicles and automatic weapons. They're breaking up protests. They're telling people when and where they can utilize their free speech. It's just not a good thing. So in a time when violent crimes are falling and one of the major producers of criminals, marijuana, is being legalized in more and more places, why do we need more police officers? Why is it that politicians seem intent on making more police and keeping firearms out of the hands of citizens? If people aren't using these firearms for negative means, why is it so important to keep them out of their hands? I think these two things kind of go hand in hand. In a time where things are safer than they've been in decades, you'd think politicians would worry less about keeping guns out of people's hands and putting textbooks in them. You think they would worry less about having more police officers roam the street and worry more about putting that money into having a better mental health system or rebuilding our infrastructure. And this whole misconception that police officers need armed vehicles and automatic weapons because they're fighting drug lords, well, that's not even the case. In fact, in 48 states, it's not even an issue. And in a couple of states that it is an issue, it's not their primary job. There are other agencies that do this. They are at most a support for this function. So at a time like this, where crime rates are at the lowest rate that most people like myself that are alive today can even remember, and we're safer than we've been in decades, why are politicians continually calling for less guns and more cops? Could it be that they're actually looking out for us and they're trying to create as safe a society as possible? Or could it be that they're only looking out for themselves and they're trying to protect their own interests and their own power?